it's real and it's fake. I faked it. And that just infuriates me when people do that. And it's one of the reasons I don't even get on. Initially, when I got into this, I wanted to get the word out about what we were finding out in our area. Okay, and there's obviously quite a number of groups, and I was belonging to some of the ones that had greater quantity. I mean, they had the larger memberships. I got out of all of the ones. I virtually am out of all the ones that are catered to the masses. I have my own private one. Well, it's a closed group. It's to encourage my research and other people. And I scrutinize the people come into it. And it says, if you want to see the real thing, come on inside and you can see these. But I'm not taking my pictures or any of my research and just throwing it out, to everyone. Because that's what happens is then you have to deal with the trolls and all the bad comments. And not that I'm hypersensitive or anything like that, but it just drains you to have to deal with that, so.
Well, hey, just imagine 60 to 80,000 people. I'm doing good. I shouldn't even say this because I'll have more. I probably got one or two trolls, that, will make some little remarks. But unfortunately, the only people that see the remarks is me. I mean, depending.
Right. If you moderate them. Yeah. I see.
Yeah. I right now, because my show goes through a server. And then from a server, it goes to like Speaker Radio, and then it goes to iTunes, and it goes to iHeart, and it goes to TuneIn, and it goes to a whole bunch of different apps, and it's all programmed, to send it out all at the same time. So I do have my main broadcast board, which has a chat. Okay, so, depending on what app, I can see what they're posting. And then another one I have here, Speaker, which I use. I mainly got that for I could just see, people asking questions. The other thing they don't realize, like when I'm interviewing somebody, I can't read every single message they text me, and you'll get people, say, that guy's fake or this person's fake. I can't respond to them, and I wish I could, but I just want to let people out there, if you're upset because I don't respond to your texts, I'm sorry, because depending on what app you're on, I might not see them till after I'm done with the show, and then, I do a report, and then I can see what you've been sending me. I'm sorry. But
go ahead.
I admire what you do, because you know what, you've seen things. You've been out there. What you've seen, and that's the big difference. And that's where I get so frustrated with people that want to come on the show when they have never seen anything and they only go by what they read on Facebook or on YouTube and stuff like that. And they really don't know what they're talking about. I'm sorry. And it frustrates me. I don't even know that much. But I can tell you my experience. And, I can tell you about like Ed Romans, which I know that he is a very reliable source. And I've had a couple other people on my show. It's been very reliable. I've checked them out. And they're not flakes. So, but I still haven't ran across a Bigfoot that was friendly and bubbly and wanted to be my friend, and, so I don't know. I mean, you don't know, just like with people. But if you're in the wrong place with a Bigfoot, there's nothing out there. And again, it depends on where you're at. Where I was way out up in the Canadian Rockies. I was up there in the beginning of June, when the roads are still, had snow on the sides of the road yet. And there was hardly any traffic. And then to get to this Japanese internment camp, we had to take a side road for a few miles in and then hike in 2 miles. And, and it was kind of eerie because we went through the old cemetery from the internment camp. And, the old markers and all that stuff, old grown, just totally overgrown, and it was eerie and scary, let alone then run across what we did.
Well, and I certainly am not the person, just because I've had good experiences, going to say, everything's rosy, they're all great, and they're going to treat us fine and everything. And because I think we had a discussion about we were just talking about people disappearing and stuff like that, and about some other entities and beings and the possibilities of why that could have possibly taken place. So I know that there's all sorts of things going on in the woods, and people, and maybe it would frighten people to ever go back out in the woods if they knew. But on the same, and also the fact that the first misconception that people probably think about is that the only thing out in the woods, other than in the animals that we're aware of, is the cryptid called the Bigfoot, because he's the unknown or the unseen thing that happens out there. But it doesn't take you long before you realize that there's different kinds. There's different kinds of Bigfoots, and then we get this general term, we just slap a label on it and call everything Bigfoot, but then you start seeing creatures bigger than Bigfoot or smaller than Bigfoot, and then you have to realize that there's just untold number of species of cryptids. And when I say cryptids, things that tend to, or that we just can't seem to detect most of the time. And so some of them tend to be more malevolent or more human-like in their nature, and some tend to be more predatory.
Well, don't forget though,
yeah.
Samantha. It depends on where you're at. Like
That's true.
Where you go at. Let's face it. You know, there's a campground right there. You go a little farther past a store. If I remember right, there is like a big giant hotel or whatever it is, and some Indian teepees that used to be out there. That was years ago, and you know it was a tourist area, so there's going to be a lot more people there. And
they got urbanized. We got urbanized cryptids out there now, so they're a little bit more acclimated to people because people are around all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like where I was at, I was out in the Canadian Rockies, and I was out where they built the internment camp away from people. Right. So I mean, they wanted it way out secluded, and I was so naive. I didn't have a weapon with me. I didn't think about it. I didn't even have bear spray. And we were so shook up after we got back in the car and managed to get away. We stopped, maybe 15 miles away. There was a little store, and we were talking to the guy because he could tell we were totally shook up, And the story is, he goes, well, don't you know that there's bear around here? That a week before that, I guess somebody was out hiking and a bear got him, and they found the remains, and it was half eaten. And he goes, well, if you're out where you're at, he goes, did you have a bear spray or a gun? Well, when we told him we weren't a Canadian citizen, we didn't, we were not allowed to have a gun. And he goes, you were there even without bear spray? And I said, well, I didn't even think about it.
Right.
So I don't think bear spray would do any good if I would have just stood there and that Bigfoot charged and attacked. And the thing is, when you're out like where I was at, I think even if it was the same type of species what you find in your area, they're not used to humans like as anywhere near like where you're at versus someplace way out secluded. So, they're going to be more probably apt to respond completely different, Oh,
I found that true even within Washington State. There's I have a way to kind of I got a real good familiarity. Well, let's just say the Bigfoots know me in the area, the clans and our friends. So they have an extreme comfort level with us. But I've been down south, like Carson, Washington, down below Mount St. Helens and that side, going down the eastern side of that, the Forest Service Road going there. And we've had experiences of a little bit more aggressive ones down there where some kind of white entity, Bigfoot, kind of spoofed, kind of like scared some of the people down there, And I had this, also I was filming something, and I could tell that there was some kind of thing in the tree. Based on my picture, I could tell where I went to this, I was by myself, unfortunately, but it was off the side of the road, and I'm seeing what appears to be two entities. I don't know if they're Bigfoots or what. They could have been something else. And I got my camera to take a couple of pictures, and my camera locks up. I mean, it electronically locks up. I can't even turn it off. It's locked or turn it on. It's completely locked up, like an electromagnetic pulse may hit it or something. I literally had to take the battery out. I put the battery back in, did turn it on, and it some of the juice in the battery was already drained out of it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, and that's not a first-time occurrence has happened. I've had, I had a infrared camera, that, or not an infrared binoculars that'll let someone be able to see, at night. And I told him, this guy that borrowed it, I said, now make sure you don't use this and shine it and use it to try to see Bigfoot at night, because they can see the infrared rays and they don't like it. Just as much as shining a bright flashlight at them, that's another lesson I had to learn. I don't ever shine a flashlight at Bigfoot. Always point it down if you're walking in the woods and they're around. But anyway, he took it out there, and I had a nice set of batteries in there, fresh, and they weren't rechargeable, so I had some really good Duracells in there. He goes out there, and he uses it, and they totally drained. The battery's dead in within seconds. And he said, well, he replaced the batteries. I said, I told you not to do that. They don't like it. Because what happened was he parked in this one particular little parking lot in a very desolate little open area off one of the Forest Service roads, and what he described as like 100, maybe not 100, but multitudes of Christmas lights, red Christmas lights, were moving toward him all over the forest.
Oh boy!
And he wanted to take a closer look. So,
well, you know what I would have done? I would have put it in reverse, turned around, and got out of there. That's what I would have done.
Well, he was there because he was trying to engage them. I mean, it was a purposeful trip.
Yeah, maybe it could have been maybe too purposeful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
But you know what? I think, I was talking about it with Michael W. Hall, if you know who he is, the paranormal lawyer. We were talking about it the other day about UFOs and stuff like that. Here's the thing. I used to design computer equipment back in the 80s. And then we'd have to send the stuff out to the lab for RF emissions, where it sends out a signal if it doesn't interfere with the broadcast band or emergency band.
RF certification.
Yeah, so we had to make sure that there was no emissions, okay?
Yep.
Now, every piece of electronic device will send out some type of harmonic, some type of a little transmitter. And, and at some type of frequency. So, depending on those binoculars or your camera, they could be picking that up.
They all have a CPU chip in it that runs at a certain clock speed, and that clock speed emits RF energy.
Yeah, and they can maybe be picking that up.
Yep, they do. They have the ability to actually... I don't know if it's sight so much as they actually can feel electromagnetic energy, or they can detect it. Possibly can even see it, but that's how they know it. That's how they can find I know one person who decided to try to hide one of those small USB spy recorders inside of a stump and pushed it down pretty deep and then covered it up and then we put out a gifting of, we don't do this anymore, but she tried to put out a gifting of peanut butter and various things, and they used to get this all the time. They used to come and get the peanut butter. They'd open the jar up. They'd even tear off the aluminum foil inside. Or they'll take a stick and they'll poke it around in it, and they'll eat the peanut butter off the stick. Because you'd find the peanut butter jar kind of like either half eaten or fully eaten, and then you find the poke marks inside the jar, or they just simply clean it out. And so they did this, and then when that happened, how we found it later is that we found it missing. They got a hold of it, and they dug it, grabbed it, and they threw it. It wasn't anywhere near the stump. And then later, perchance, the person that had it walked, and found it. It was laying under a leaf or something. And we got it back in the computer and listened. You could hear this, like really low tone digging for it, and they pulled it out. You could hear the grunting noises or whatever noise, that they were making. And then all of a sudden you kind of hear the grunting